Hello everybody, my name is Troublemaker and this is Wargame Talk 16, the semi-frequent podcast for the Wargame community. Our biggest news story comes from MadMat. He has responded to the claim that Blufor is OP, Red 4 is really hard to play, and he says this: as of now, well, as a few minutes ago, a grand total of 296,924 multiplayer games have been played on Red Dragon since release. This includes ranked or friendly games, 10v10, ... all recorded, but these we can only extract the alliance, that is, Blufor or Red 4, not the nations nor coalitions played. Of course, this means that a few OP4, Blufor versus Blufor, and Red 4 versus Red 4 games might disrupt a bit of the stats, but they should cancel each other out for the most part, and either way, not have a real impact on the overall stats. So, out of those 296,924 games, Blufor leads the way with 151,241 victories, which represents 50.93% of the games, which isn't that bad in our opinion, especially in the face of all the Red 4 is underpowered, Commonwealth is overpowered threads. And that's the end of that. And these stats are actually a big revelation because a lot of people, especially at the lower end, have been seeing a lot of Blufor victories, but that appears to be a bit of a perception bias and not actually based in reality. Moving on into tournament news, we have two tournaments in the news. The first is the BTR Flash Tournament. The new tournament will begin on May 31st. The tournament will be a 1v1 and will take a little under 5 hours in one day. The Flash format is to get the tournament over with very quickly. All matches happen at a very predictable scheduled time and end at a very predictable scheduled time. If you're interested, check out Griffer's thread and sign up. Clash of the Clans 3 has begun and is going strong. Half of round 2 is now over, and we'll soon be seeing the breakdown of the winners and losers bracket. For casted matches from Clash of the Clans 3, make sure to check out myself and Rangaroo casting them over at Rangaroo's channel. The modding community has been very busy and have been pumping out lots of great mods and mod concepts. First off, mod concepts. Tearing Down the Wall, Wargame 1987. This mod will set to bring the game back to pre-1987 and set it back in the Cold War. We have Wargame Crimean Escalation, which uses Ukraine as the spark for a modern war. All units are brought into modernity and updated accordingly. Units that are out of service are removed, as well as many factions. But there will be land-based ASMs, which are not as useful now that they're actually adding them into a patch in the future. We have the Battlegroup Mod, which will set to start basically a giant army. However, instead of having units rally in, you just deal with what you have, that is all of your army. It's an interesting game mode, kind of makes it more like chess. And we also have the Enhancement Mod coming up, which will make tanks cheaper and make coalitions far less powerful. This will try to bring minor nations back up to being valuable, and it will make tanks insanely valuable. In the world of textures, Darkmill and Scouts have brought forth 2 new texture packs, largely focusing on planes, and an interesting choice, we see the Colonel Kilgore TACOM mod. This is a new texture mod that replaces the regular TACOM units with Colonel Kilgore from Full Metal Jacket. Definitely a really cool skin in the world of skins that have been focusing mostly on vehicles. Over and over, the same complaint comes from people: allow us to hide stats. In this segment, I'd argue that this would hurt the community rather than help it, and people who want to have stats hidden might care to look at them more carefully. The stats do have one problem. I think it's worth mentioning. These stats should act as accolades or bragging rights. Because of this, they should be far more detailed and far more specific. As a simple example, having top kill listed in your stats would be amazing. What single unit killed the most stuff? Yeah, that would be a really cool thing to see, especially for some of the more ridiculous kill lists. Single player is also very lacking in the stats department. Each campaign should have its very own accolade. Most of these campaigns have a minor and a major victory, indicating how a person got their victory or whether they achieved the major victory is really important to people who play single player campaigns. In some campaigns, speed matters. Indicating how many turns it took to finish is also important. The current stats are actually just too bland to fulfill the reward they are set to see. Actual stats, however, should be useful. These ones are really not all that useful to helping you play better. They are trophies. For that reason, stats have a very basic problem. People use them to prune bad players from public games and keep good players. However, stats also seem to tell some other things, like who is doing this. A person with a 95% win ratio, for example, is probably pruning a team pretty heavily, whereas a person with a 30% win ratio is most definitely not. So if you run into a game in which the other team is full of people with over 90% win ratios, and your team has something like a 30% win ratio, maybe this just isn't the game for you. As well, people who tend to play mostly Blufor, which is arguably easier to play, will show in their stats and will immediately know that they probably will struggle with Red 4. It all brings down to the single biggest weakness of Wargame series, a complete lack of achievements in Steam or in-game. If there was some sort of achievement index, a lot of the stats could be put into some kind of perspective. But right now the stats are just broken, and mostly pointless. If you really think pruning out bad players will end with the removal of stats, you're fooling yourself. All this will do is remove your ability to detect people who are doing this. All visual stats do is make the process of pruning people out easier. People will still find ways to set up games so that they are guaranteed wins. Think of how many noobs welcome games, except the teams sitting there are all top tier players waiting for newbie competitors.